Here, history doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't knock. It waits until you stop moving. Tonight, you are not listening to Japan. You are walking through it. You are on a road that does not exist anymore, not in the way roads usually do. It was never paved properly. It was never important enough to keep. It survived for centuries simply because people needed it, and then one day they didn't. The ground beneath your feet is uneven. Stone pressed into earth, earth pressed into memory. Each step feels familiar, even though you know you've never been here before. Moss creeps along the edges of the path, thick and dark, clinging to stone like it is afraid to let go. The air is cool, heavy. It smells faintly of damp soil and old leaves and something metallic you can't quite place. Somewhere nearby, water moves slowly, not fast enough to hear clearly, but enough to feel. A stream, a river, or something older. You don't hear voices, you don't hear animals, just the quiet sound of your breathing, and beneath it, the hum you brought with you from home. You slow down. Not because you chose to, because the road asks you to. And then you see him. A small stone figure stands beside the path. At first glance, he looks almost accidental, like a rock that happens to resemble a person. He is short, rounded, worn smooth by time and weather, and hands that reached out without thinking. His face is calm, not smiling exactly, not serious either. It is the face of something that has learned patience so deeply it no longer remembers impatience. Around his neck is a red cloth. It is faded almost to rust. The edges are frayed, but the knot is neat, intentional. Someone stood here once, exactly where you are now, and took the time to tie it properly. You assume it is decoration. That assumption lasts only a few steps, because there is another, then another. They appear slowly as if the road itself is revealing them one by one. Some stand upright, balanced, and solid. Some lean slightly, their bases sinking unevenly into the earth. A few are broken, heads missing, faces eroded into blank stone, hands worn away entirely. Yet none of them feel abandoned. In fact, the more you walk, the stronger the feeling becomes. You are not alone on this road. These are jizo. In ancient Japan, you would not ask who he is. Children knew his name before they understood death. Travelers bowed to him without thinking. Parents avoided his gaze and sought it at the same time. Jizo does not sit in heaven. He does not rule, he remains. You were told quietly that when children die too young, they cannot cross into the next world. Not because they are unworthy, not because they are punished, but because they are unfinished. They wait on a riverbank between worlds. Sai no Kawara. There the children stack small stones into towers. Each stone is a prayer, each tower an attempt to be seen. But the towers never last. Wind knocks them down, water scatters them, and something else, something unseen, undoes the work again and again. Some say demons, some say despair, some say time itself. So Jizō comes. He hides the children inside his robe. He carries them when they are too tired to hope anymore. He listens to prayers that were never spoken aloud. That is why the red cloth is there. Red to protect against illness, red to guard the soul, red to replace blood that should never have been spilled. You kneel beside one statue. Up close, the stone is cold, rougher than you expected. You can see the marks left by the tool that shaped it, uneven, hesitant. Whoever carved this did not know if it would work. They carved anyway. At his feet are stones, smooth river stones, stacked carefully. Some have fallen, some have been rebuilt. You realize something then, something that tightens your chest. This ritual never ends. The stones fall. They are rebuilt. They fall again, just like the towers at the riverbank. Just like grief. You stand and continue walking. The road curves gently, and the statues thin out, then gather again. One jizo holds a small stone child. Another clasps his hands together, worn smooth by centuries of touch. Another is so eroded that only his outline remains. Yet someone has tied a fresh red bib around his neck. You begin to wonder who is still coming here. Was it today? Yesterday? Last winter? Or has someone been following the same path you are walking now, for longer than you want to imagine? During famines, villagers carved jizo from whatever stone they could find. During plagues, parents lined roads with his likeness, hoping sickness would pass them by. During war, when cities burned and children vanished overnight, survivors carved jizo endlessly. Small ones, crude ones, broken ones. They placed them along roads, near bridges, at village edges, because they needed something that would stay. There are stories, rarely written down, of travelers who counted Jizo statues along a road and found a different number when they returned. Stories of villagers who swore a statue had turned slightly, just enough to face a different direction. Stories of children who claimed the stone man followed them with his eyes. Adults dismiss these stories. Adults always do. The light begins to fade, not suddenly. Gradually, the sky darkens without announcement. Fog slips between the trees, low and deliberate, like something alive but unhurried. The road narrows, the forest presses closer. You feel colder now. Another Jizo stands ahead. This one is damaged, one eye missing. A deep crack runs down his face. Time has not been kind to him. And yet someone has placed a knitted cap on his head. Crooked, slightly too big, recently made. You stop. You realize something then that feels almost wrong. Jizō is not waiting for the dead. He is waiting for travelers. For people who carry loss they never speak about. For those who survived when others did not. For grief that has nowhere else to sit. He does not comfort by fixing. He comforts by witnessing. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all. Because Jizō does not promise that pain ends. He promises that it will be seen. You turn to leave, and for just a moment, only a moment, you are certain that one of the statues was not there before. You do not look back to confirm. Some roads are safer if you keep walking. Behind you, the Jizō remain, watching, waiting. They have stood here longer than memory. They will stand here long after roads disappear again. This is how history survives in Japan. Not in dates, not in names, but in stone figures beside forgotten paths, holding stories no one could carry alone. You have been listening to the Silent Archive, and some stories do not end when the sound stops. They follow you. Quietly. You keep walking. At first you tell yourself you imagined it. The extra statue, the feeling that the road shifted when you weren't looking. Your mind tries to be practical, tries to protect you with explanations. Darkness does that to people. Fog thickens around your ankles, while clinging low, refusing to rise. Each step forward feels quieter than the last, as if the ground itself has learned how to swallow sound. The hum from the fan, the one you turned on at home, feels farther away now, thinner, like it's struggling to reach you. The road bends again, and this time it doesn't feel gentle. It feels deliberate. You notice the trees first. They stand closer together now, their trunks dark and narrow, their branches tangled above you like fingers interlocking. No wind moves them. They are still in a way that feels unnatural, like they are listening. Then you notice the statues. There are more of them now. Too many. They are no longer spaced naturally along the road. They crowd it, line it. Press close enough that you could reach out and touch them without stepping off the path. Their faces are different, some smiling faintly, some completely blank, some so eroded that only the suggestion of a face remains, and yet they all feel aware. You walk slower. Your body remembers something your mind doesn't. In old stories, roads like this were called zing, boundaries, not just between places, but between states of being. Roads where travelers were warned not to stop, not to count, not to look too closely. You count anyway. You lose track almost immediately. At the base of one Jizō statue, you notice something new. Footprints, small ones. Bare feet, pressed lightly into the damp earth beside the road. They do not cross the path. They stop in front of the statue, and then they disappear. You swallow. You tell yourself they are old, washed half away rain, made by a child from another time. But the earth is still soft, and the prints are too clear. You keep walking. The offerings change as you move deeper. The stones stacked at Jizō's feet grow taller, more careful, as if someone's been practicing for a very long time. You see toys now, wooden dolls with chipped paint, small sandals placed neatly side by side. One statue wears 2 red bibs. Another wears none. Another has something wrapped around its wrist, a string of paper prayers, yellowed with age, fluttering faintly, even though there is still no wind. You realize something slowly, unwillingly. These statues are not all the same age. Some are ancient, their surfaces softened almost beyond recognition. Others are new. Their edges are sharper, their carvings less patient, their stone lighter in color, not yet darkened by decades of rain. Someone is still placing Jizō on this road. The thought makes your chest tighten. You stop. The road does not react. Silence stretches, not empty silence, waiting silence. The kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, your own breath, the weight of your body standing where it might not be welcome. You remember something then, an old warning, passed down quietly. If you find yourself on a road lined with guardians, never assume they are there for protection. Sometimes they are there to mark where people stop coming back. You take another step. The fog rises slightly now, no longer clinging only to the ground. It curls around your legs, your waist, your chest, cool against your skin. Shapes move within it, not clearly, not enough to identify, but enough to notice. You do not call out, you know better. Ahead, the road opens into a small clearing, and at the center of it, a cluster of Jizo statues unlike any you have seen before. They are taller, older. Their stone is dark, almost black, as if it has absorbed more than rain. They face inward, arranged in a rough circle. Their expressions are different too, solemn, focused. At their feet is a mound of stones, not stacked, piled. Hundreds of them, small, smooth river stones, gathered obsessively, layered upon one another until they form something like a low altar. Some have slipped away and rolled outward, as if trying to escape. You understand before you want to. This is not a place of passing. This is a place of stopping. The air feels heavier here, harder to breathe. The smell changes. Less earth, more stone, more water, something faintly sweet and rotten at the same time. You step closer. You shouldn't. You know you shouldn't. But the circle feels unfinished without you. One of the statues wears a red bib that is startlingly clean, new. The knot is tight. The cloth has not faded yet. And beneath it, carved into the stone chest, are faint marks you didn't notice at first. Lines, not decorative. Tallies. You lean in before you can stop yourself. They are finger marks, pressed repeatedly into soft stone before it hardened. Small grooves, unevenly spaced, too small to belong to an adult. You pull your hand back as if burned. This is when you feel it, the certainty. You are not walking through history anymore. History is walking with you. The statues are not watching the road. They are watching you walk it, because every road like this ends the same way, not with death, with staying. You turn around. The path behind you is still there, but it looks longer, darker, and lined with more statues than you remember. For the first time since you began walking, you feel the urge to run. You don't. Running is loud, and nothing here likes loud things. So you walk, slowly, carefully, and behind you, just behind you, always just behind you, you hear something you haven't heard until now. Stone shifting against stone, not falling, not breaking, repositioning. You do not look back. Some knowledge changes you even if you never confirm it. You keep walking. And somewhere deep in the fog, a child laughs, not happily, just softly, as if practicing the sound. You keep walking. You tell yourself you are choosing to, that your feet are still obeying you, that nothing has changed except the darkness and the fog and the way the air presses against your chest, like it is testing how much space you need to breathe. The sound you heard, stone shifting against stone, does not repeat. That is worse. Silence returns, but it is not the same silence as before. It has weight now, direction. It feels like it has learned where you are. The road slopes downward almost imperceptibly. Not enough to notice at first, but enough that your calves begin to ache, enough that your balance feels slightly off, like gravity itself has tilted just a little too far forward. You notice the statues again. They are no longer facing the road. At least, not all of them. Some still look ahead, their expressions calm, patient, unchanged. But others, just a few, are turned slightly inward, not fully. Just enough that if you were standing still, you might convince yourself it was coincidence. You are not standing still. As you pass one statue, you feel something brush against your sleeve. You stop. Nothing is there. No wind, no branches close enough to touch you. Just stone and fog and the quiet sound of your own pulse filling your ears. You keep your hands close to your body after that. You remember another warning then. One of the ones people stopped repeating out loud because it made children ask questions adults didn't want to answer. If you feel something touch you on a boundary road, do not acknowledge it. Acknowledgement is invitation. The offerings at the statue's feet are different now. The toys are more fragile. Paper dolls, damp and curling at the edges. Small bundles wrapped in cloth, tied carefully, as if whoever left them was afraid of them coming undone too soon. You see writing on some of the stones, names, not carved, scratched. Some are faded beyond recognition. Others are sharp enough that you can tell they were made recently, with a stone or a nail or something desperate and small. You do not read them out loud. The fog thickens again, then thins, then thickens. It moves like breath now. In, out, in, out. You realize with a chill that it seems to pause when you pause. The road opens into another clearing, smaller than the last one, more intimate. Here the statues are arranged in rows, not a circle, not randomly, rows, like an audience. They face the center, where a single jizo stands apart from the others. This one is different. He is taller. His features are less worn, as if time has treated him gently, or avoided him entirely. His stone is pale, almost luminous in the low light, and his expression is wrong. Not angry, not kind, attentive. Around his neck hangs a red cloth that is not cloth at all. It is layered. Multiple bibs, tied one over another, thick enough to look heavy. Some are so old they have fused together. Others are new, their color still vivid, still alive. At his feet the ground is bare. No stones, no toys, just smooth earth. You understand instinctively that nothing is placed here. Things are taken. Your mouth feels dry. You think of all the jizo statues you passed earlier, the broken ones, the ones missing faces, the ones so eroded they were barely shapes. You think of how this one is untouched, preserved. The thought arrives slowly, but once it does, it refuses to leave. What if Jizō does not only protect? What if he also collects? A sound breaks the silence. Not behind you, not ahead, beside you. It is the soft scrape of stone against dirt. You do not turn your head. You do not need to. You know one of the statues in the rows has shifted. Not much, just enough to face you directly. Your skin prickles. You take a step backward. The ground feels firmer here, packed hard by countless feet that stopped, hesitated, turned around, or didn't. You realize something else then. The road behind you does not slope upward anymore. It is level, as if it has adjusted itself, as if it prefers you not gain distance too quickly. You think of the riverbank between worlds, of the children stacking stones endlessly, of towers falling, being rebuilt, falling again. You think of repetition, of ritual, of how long something has to exist before it stops needing belief. The central Jizo's shadow stretches unnaturally across the clearing, reaching farther than the others, brushing against your feet like a question. You whisper without meaning to. I'm just passing through. The words feel wrong the moment they leave your mouth. Passing through is a privilege. The fog responds. It pulls inward, tightening the clearing, blurring the edges of the statues until they seem closer, more crowded, more attentive. And then you hear it again. The laugh, closer this time. It comes from somewhere low, near the ground, and it is followed by the sound of stones clicking together, not falling, stacking. You remember then, clearly, vividly, that no one ever said the children stopped building their towers, only that they never finished. You take another step back. The central Jizo does not move. He does not need to. He has been here longer than motion. You feel something settle over you, not fear exactly, but a heavy understanding. This road does not trap people by force. It waits for them to slow down enough to belong. The statues lining the path were never warnings. They were markers, proof that others stood where you are standing now, felt what you are feeling now, and stayed long enough to be remembered in stone. You think of the red bibs, of how carefully they were tied, of how many hands must have returned to adjust them, straighten them, make sure they stayed in place. Not offerings. Thank yous for being allowed to remain. You turn your body slightly, not enough to run, not enough to flee, just enough to acknowledge the path behind you exists. The fog parts, just a little, enough for you to see the road continuing. And along it, more statues, newer ones, their stones still pale, their faces still forming. You understand now what happens to travelers who linger too long. They are not lost. They are archived. Somewhere behind you, a small stone clicks into place. Another tower completed. For now. You stay where you are, not because you want to, because moving feels like making a choice, and something in the air tells you that choices have consequences here. The sound of stones clicking together continues. Not fast, not frantic, careful, intentional. Stacking is happening somewhere you cannot see. Not behind you exactly, not ahead. It feels as though it is happening within the fog itself, as if the mist has learned how to use hands. You listen long enough to recognize a pattern. 3 stones placed, a pause, 1 stone adjusted, another pause. The rhythm is patient, familiar, almost practiced. You remember the stories again, the ones you were told gently as if softness could make them safer. Children who died too young wait on the riverbank. Children stack stones. Children hope. But standing here, surrounded by rows of watching Jizō, that explanation begins to feel incomplete. You look at the offerings again. The sandals are not all the same size. Some are far too large for a child. Some are worn unevenly, as if dragged rather than walked in. Some bear marks along the heel, shallow grooves where the stone scraped again and again. You realize those are not from walking. They are from stopping, from standing in one place for a very long time. Your throat tightens. You notice the writing on the stones again, the scratched names, the half-erased symbols. At first you assumed they belonged to children. Now you are no longer sure. Some names are written in a firm, adult hand. Others are clumsy. Some repeat. Some trail off halfway, as if whoever wrote them could not finish. You step closer to the central Jizō. The air around him feels different, thicker, pressurized, like standing too close to deep water. The layered red bibs rustle faintly, even though there is still no wind. You understand then why this place feels wrong, why it feels busy. The children were never alone here. They were never the only ones waiting. The truth arrives slowly, but once it does, it settles into you with the weight of stone. The children are not only children, they are the ones who stopped. Travelers who hesitated too long at the boundary. Mothers who returned one too many times. Fathers who could not leave offerings and walk away. Monks who chose silence over departure. People who followed grief back down the road instead of carrying it forward. The road did not take them, they stayed. And over time, staying changed them. The sound of stacking stops. You hear breathing, soft, uneven, too close. You do not turn around, a voice speaks. It is not loud, it does not echo. It does not come from one direction. You stack better when you stop hoping. The words are not cruel, they are matter of fact. You swallow, your mouth opens before you can stop it. Who are you? There is a pause. Then, we are what is left when waiting outlasts wanting. You feel something cold brush against your ankle. Not skin, stone. You look down. At your feet, a small tower has formed, 3 stones tall, freshly stacked. The top stone is still damp. You step back sharply, breaking the tower. The stones scatter. The fog reacts immediately. It surges inward, closing the space you created, pressing closer, tighter. You feel it against your ribs, your spine, your throat. The statues lean, not visibly, but perceptibly, as if attention itself has mass. The voice speaks again, closer now. You are late, it says. Late for what? Another pause. Becoming. Your heart pounds. You understand now why Jizō stands where he does. He is not guarding the children. He is guarding the process. He does not stop people from waiting. He makes sure waiting has shape, form, memory, stone. You think of the faceless statues, the broken ones, the eroded ones. They were not abandoned. They were completed. A shape emerges in the fog ahead. Small at first, then clearer. It looks like a child. Then it doesn't. Its proportions are wrong, too still, too precise. Its face is smooth, like unfinished stone. Where its eyes should be are shallow depressions, thumb pressed, not carved. It kneels. Begins stacking stones. You realize then that the laughter you heard earlier was not joy. It was practice. The voice returns, now layered, overlapping, as if many throats are speaking through one habit. We were not taken, it says. We were allowed to stay. You shake your head. No, you whisper. You died. There is something like amusement in the silence that follows. Some of us did, the voice says. Some of us simply never left. The shape finishes its tower. 4 stones. 5. It pauses, then gently adjusts the base. The tower stands. For now. You feel an unbearable pull in your chest. Not fear, not exactly, but recognition. A sense of being seen too clearly. As if the road knows the places you lingered in your own life. The moments you replayed. The losses you circled instead of passing. You hear us, the voice says. That means you already know how to wait. The central Jizō's shadow stretches again, longer than before. You feel a strange certainty settle in. This is not a trap. It is an invitation to rest, to stay, to become something that no longer needs to move forward. You look back at the road. It is still there. But now you see what you missed before. Along its edges are faint shapes, half formed. Stone that has not fully decided what it will be. Faces that have not yet chosen expressions. Future statues. You understand now. The children are not the dead. They are the remembered. They are what happens when grief is given time instead of release. And Jizō is not their protector. He is their archivist. The fog thickens. A small stone rolls gently toward your foot. It stops, waiting. If you do not pick up the stone, you do not step back into the fog, you do not bow. The invitation lingers between you and the ground like a held breath, waiting for the smallest movement to become agreement. The stone at your feet is smooth, river-worn, light enough that lifting it would cost you nothing. That is the danger. You shake your head. The motion feels loud in the silence. No, you say. The word does not echo, it sinks. For a moment, nothing happens. The fog does not surge. The statues do not move. Even the sound of stacking has stopped, as if the road itself is listening. Then the pressure changes. Not around you, inside you. Your chest tightens, not with panic, but with something older, heavier. The weight of remembered pauses. Moments you lingered in doorways. Days you didn't leave the house. Conversations you replayed until they lost meaning. The voice speaks again, but it is no longer layered. It is singular. Disappointed. Everyone says that, it says. You take a step backward. The ground resists, not physically, conceptually, like stepping away from something that has already decided you are part of it. I'm not staying, you say, louder this time. The fog thins abruptly. You can see farther down the road than before, far enough to see where it bends, far enough to see where it disappears into trees that look sharper, darker, more real than anything behind you. Hope flares. And then the statues begin to change. Not all at once, one at a time. A jizo to your left develops a crack along its cheek. The stone splits softly, like drying clay. Another statue's surface roughens, losing its smoothness, its patience. You realize with a chill that these are not new changes. They are reversions. These statues are not being made. They are being unmade. You misunderstand refusal, the voice says. It is not departure. A statue in the front row collapses. Not violently. It simply loses coherence, stone sloughing off in quiet sheets, revealing something beneath that is not stone at all. Fabric. Bone. A human shape folded inward, compressed, as if held in place for far too long. You gag. The air smells different now, not decay, stagnation. The smell of rooms that have been closed for years. You think staying turns you to stone, the voice continues. It does not. Another statue cracks. This one opens at the chest. Inside is a mouth. It opens. A sound comes out, not a scream, but a sob caught halfway through learning how to breathe again. You stagger back. This time the ground gives. You fall. Your hands hit the dirt hard, and for the first time since you arrived on this road, you feel pain. Real pain. Sharp. Immediate. The fog recoils. The statues freeze. The voice goes quiet. You lie there, gasping, hands pressed into soil that feels unmistakably alive. You understand then. Refusal does not turn you away. It wakes you up, and waking up here is dangerous. You push yourself to your feet. Your body feels heavier now, as if gravity has remembered you exist. Every step aches. Every breath burns slightly in your throat. The road ahead sharpens. Details rush in. Bark texture, pebbles, the sound of distant water. Reality is returning. Behind you, the statues do not follow. They watch. The central Jizo's expression changes for the first time. Not anger, not sadness, something closer to resignation. Go, the voice says softly. But understand this, you hesitate. Against your better judgment, you listen. Those who refuse carry the weighting with them. The fog thins further, breaking apart like breath in cold air. You step forward. The road allows it. Behind you, the statues begin to settle again. Cracks seal. Stone smooths. The undone ones are covered once more, hidden beneath patience and time. Except for one. Near the edge of the clearing stands a figure that does not harden back into stone. It remains human-shaped. It looks at you. Its eyes are open. It mouths a word you cannot hear. You do not wait to understand it. You walk. Then you walk faster. Then you run. The road narrows, trees closing in, the air growing colder, sharper, undeniably real. Your lungs burn. Your legs shake. You trip and fall onto asphalt. A modern road, a guardrail, a streetlight humming softly above you. You lie there staring at the sky, heart pounding, hands scraped, clothes dirty. Cars pass in the distance. Life continues. You laugh, once, hysterical, relieved. Then you notice something in your pocket. You reach in, your fingers close around a small, smooth stone. Warm. You drop it immediately. It does not roll away. It stops, waiting. Somewhere far behind you, on a road that pretends it no longer exists, a tower collapses and is quietly rebuilt. You do not return to that road for a very long time, and at first that feels like proof that it no longer exists, that whatever happened there has been folded neatly into the part of memory reserved for exhaustion, imagination, or stories that grow teeth only when you look at them directly. You go back to your life. You sleep beneath ordinary ceilings, wake to ordinary light, listen to the familiar sounds of the world asserting itself through fans, distant engines, and morning voices that do not know your name. And for a while you allow yourself to believe that leaving was the end of it, that departure closed something permanently. But refusal, you learn, does not vanish when it is accepted. It lingers quietly, not as fear, but as residue, settling into pauses you take without realizing, into moments where you stand in doorways slightly longer than necessary, into silences that feel heavier than they should, as though they are waiting for you to notice them. You begin to recognize the sound you listen for when nothing is playing, a subtle internal echo that is not quite memory and not quite imagination, something like stone touching stone at a distance too far away to locate. Your dreams change in ways that are difficult to describe without sounding ungrateful for waking. In them, you are always moving, never lost and never arriving, walking roads that feel important without knowing why, sometimes passing statues half hidden by fog, sometimes standing among them, watching someone else hesitate in the exact way you once did. When you wake from these dreams, there is no panic, only the unsettling sense that something counted you carefully, and then, for reasons you were not allowed to hear, decided to let you go. It takes years before you understand why. You were able to leave because you never tried to stay. The road does not claim those who grieve once and move forward carrying the weight of it. It claims those who return again and again, polishing memory until it becomes sacred, confusing devotion for healing, mistaking stillness for peace. You walked the boundary road, but you did not kneel. You listened, but you did not stack. You felt the invitation settle into your chest, heavy and tempting and familiar, and you chose pain instead of preservation, movement instead of permanence. And that choice, more than belief, more than fear, is what separated you from the statues lining the path. Jizo does not keep those who know how to carry loss forward through time. He keeps those who try to set it down gently and wait beside it forever. That is why the figures along the road looked peaceful, why their faces softened rather than twisted, because what they became was not punishment, but relief. A release from motion, from decision, from the unbearable requirement of continuing. Years pass, and with them comes the quiet detail that finally unsettles you. A stone. It appears without ceremony, without explanation, in places so ordinary they resist suspicion. Resting on a windowsill you do not remember touching, tucked into the pocket of a coat you have not worn in months, waiting at the bottom of a bag with the unmistakable warmth of something recently held. You never keep it. You never throw it away. You return it to the ground instinctively, as if you learned long ago that possession is not required for acknowledgement, and that some invitations are answered only by refusal, repeated gently, consistently, without drama. And now, quietly, this is where you enter the archive. Because you have been listening for longer than you realize. Because you know the sound of the room you are in right now, the steady hum of air moving, the distant life continuing outside, the soft pressure of silence that deepens when attention settles into it. Because at some point, perhaps earlier today, perhaps years ago, you noticed the stone and dismissed it as nothing, never considering that noticing is how the road begins, not with fear, with recognition. Jizo does not appear to everyone, only to those who understand how tempting it would be to stop moving altogether. So if, when this ends, you feel the urge to remain still just a moment longer than necessary, if your thoughts begin arranging themselves carefully, stacking memories into shapes that feel meaningful simply because they persist, then remember this: stones are patient, roads are older than intention, and refusal is not loud or dramatic or brave. It is simply continuing forward without turning back to see whether anything followed you. This has been the Silent Archive. You may let the sound fade now. Nothing else needs to be carried.